Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And welcome to the Bellator 202 breakdown and predictions. We're gonna break down the main card here. We got a 4-fight main card. This event's gonna be taking place Friday, July 13th in Thackerville, Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. And it's going to be headlined by Julia Budd and Talita Nogueira fighting for the Bellator featherweight women's title. It's going to have a co-main event with Eduardo Dantas and Michael McDonald, a UFC veteran who's only lost to the best bantamweights in the world, actually, before coming over to Bellator from the UFC. So that's a fight I'm definitely interested in as well. But let's break down this entire 4-fight main card, starting with the first fight of the night. That's going to be between Valentin Moldavsky and Ernest James. Valentin Moldavsky is 6-1 as a pro, and he won his Bellator debut. He's got one fight in Bellator. Ernest James is 1-0 as an amateur, but I believe this was actually going to be his professional debut. But he's a heavyweight, and you know how heavyweight fights go. Don't blink, because any moment, if somebody catches the other fighter, somebody could be going to sleep with all that weight being lugged around in that octagon. So this is a heavyweight fight. I'm going to be going with the smaller but more experienced heavyweight Valentin Moldavsky. This may be Ernest James's MMA debut, although he did win his amateur debut via first-round submission. Valentin has won 3 fights via submission and 3 fights via decision. I'm not super confident here because this is a heavyweight fight, and I don't know a lot about Valentin Moldavsky, but from what I see doing my research, I'm going with Valentin Moldavsky to win this fight. But he's going to be smaller in here. He weighs in at 225 pounds, according to SureDog.com. And Ernest James coming in at, I believe, 265, so the heavyweight limit. So that could definitely play a part into this fight. Excuse me. And Ernest James is also more unknown, so I don't really know a lot to expect from Ernest James. And being a heavyweight, he could, of course, just catch Valentin with the finish at any time. So I got Valentin Moldavsky winning the fight. Not super confident there, though. Moving on to Chris Honeycutt versus Leo Leite. Chris Honeycutt is 10-2 as a professional, 6-2-1 in Bellator. So he's got a lot of pro fights in Bellator in his pro career. He's going to be taking on Leo Leite, fighting out of Brazil, who's 10-1 as a pro. He lost his Bellator debut, and Leo Leite is coming in here at 40 years of age. So you know what I'm saying? He's a veteran of the game. Now, he lost his Bellator debut against Phil Davis, but he was undefeated before that with wins over decent fighters. But he wasn't fighting in Bellator or the UFC. Chris Honeycutt's a Bellator veteran who's younger and more experienced than the 40-year-old lady. And Honeycutt was riding a 4-fight winning streak before losing to Rafael Lovato Jr. But he's also was fighting decent guys before his most recent loss. And he's actually been fighting in Bellator competition, which is a little bit higher than a lot of the other organizations, you know, not the UFC, but Bellator is the B League. So, you know, having 8 fights in Bellator is a lot better than having 8 fights, you know, in various organizations that nobody really knows about. So I'm going to be going with the younger, more experienced Bellator veteran, Chris Honeycutt, to get the W here. And real quick, full-time family, before you forget, make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying this video. And also, if you're new, hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. And if you want to see more videos like this, just check out the video description, the Full-Time MMA Dojo over here at patreon.com/fulltimemma. And you can see a lot of other cool things, including the goals of this channel, which is something new. So make sure you go check that out. And with that being said, enjoy the rest of the video. Moving to the co-main event, a fight I'm really interested in, man. This is almost a toss-up for me. This is going to be a really good fight because Eduardo Dantas is 20-5 and Michael McDonald is 18-4. Both of these fighters not only have great records, but they've also been fighting high-level fighters. These are both 2 of the better bantamweights in the world. If you're talking about the UFC and Bellator, I mean, these are definitely 2 guys that could be fighting for Bellator's title in the future. The current champion is Darion Caldwell. He actually beat Eduardo Dantas, which was Eduardo Dantas' last loss. But either way, man, these are 2 exciting fighters, especially Michael McDonald, 18-4 as a pro, and he's finished, I believe, 15 out of his 18 fights. Man, this is going to be a great fight I'm looking forward to. Michael McDonald's only losses in the UFC came to some of the best bantamweights in the world: Renan Barão, Uriah Faber, John Lineker. But he went 6-3 in the UFC. He beat everybody that wasn't those three guys, who are all three of the top 10, top 5 bantamweights in the world when they were there. Now, Dantas is a former Bellator bantamweight champion who's coming off of a loss to the current champion, Darrion Caldwell. Darrion Caldwell is a very talented wrestler. And that's not necessarily Michael McDonald's style. He's actually had a little bit of trouble with some of the wrestlers he's had in the past, as he's been taken down in some of his fights if you look at his UFC resume. But I'm going to be going with Michael McDonald to get the win here. He's got fights dating back to 2011 when he was just 16 years old, and he's now very experienced 27-year-old. Now he's a very experienced 27-year-old bantamweight finisher who's only allowed 3 of 18 wins to go to decision. He fought in the UFC for 6 years before moving to Bellator, but he's somewhat prone to injury, as I believe he broke his hands in his last Bellator fight. But yeah, I'm going to be picking Michael McDonald to get the win here, but it's almost a toss-up for me. Eduardo Dantas, I mean, if you look at his resume, he's been fighting the best guys in Bellator, the Joe Warrens, the Darrion Caldwells, and just the guys that are the best bantamweights in Bellator. So he's definitely been fighting experienced guys, legit, well-rounded mixed martial artists. So this is going to be a tough fight. I'm giving the edge to Michael McDonald, but that was the hardest fight for me to call of the night for sure. Next, we're moving to the main event. We got Julia Budd versus the undefeated Talita Nogueira. Julia Budd's only 2 losses came early in her career to Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey. Now she's riding a 9-fight winning streak coming into this fight with the undefeated Talita Nogueira, who's coming off of a win over Amanda Bell, but that was her first fight since 2017. I'm going to be going, she had that fight in 2017, but since then I believe it was actually like 2013 since she had fought. So Talita Nogueira has only fought 1 time since 2013, so she hasn't been super active, but this is the thing about her: she's undefeated and she's finished all 7 of her fights. Either way though, I'm going to be going with Julia Budd to win this fight. She's I think she'll be the first fighter to beat the undefeated finisher Talita Nogueira. She finished all 7 of her pro fights with 5 submissions and 2 KOs, but she's never fought anybody as experienced as Julia Budd, and there's levels to this game. So Julia Budd, the more experienced fighter who's been fighting WMMA veterans of the sport her entire career, she's also got more experience here. I'm going to pick her to win this fight in this Bellator women's featherweight title fight. So I'm not sure if she's already the champion, so I don't know if she's defending her belt here, to be honest, or I don't know if this is the inaugural title fight. But either way, I think after tomorrow night, Julia Budd will be the Bellator women's featherweight champion. So with that being said, these are my predictions and the breakdown for Bellator 202. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. And before we go, shout out to all the full-time MMA white belts that have hit the subscribe button. Also, make sure you hit the bell right next to it so you get notified every time I upload a new video. And this is the hardest working MMA channel on YouTube. We provide daily updates, predictions, betting advice. We do songs. We do fantasy fights. We've interviewed Aljamain Sterling, Sean O'Malley, Bruce Lachmedio, and Felony Charles Bennett, all in just 1 year as an MMA channel. We're one of the fastest growing MMA channels on the net, but we're still small, so make sure you guys go check out the Full-Time MMA Dojo if you want to learn how you can become a full-time MMA black belt. And while you're there, you can see where this MMA channel started from, some of the goals we have for the channel, and even more cool videos just like this one if you enjoyed it. So thanks again to all the full-time MMA white belts that have hit the subscribe button, and also if you're just lurking and this is your first time seeing a video, appreciate that as well. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOG.